And welcome to the Barry Foster Show, now on YouTube, originating from the Ridge Floor Studios in the City of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. I'd like to remind you, if you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for our program, you can drop us a line at thebarryfostershow@gmail.com, or just in the comments below. We'd love to hear if there's guests you'd like us to interview or topics you'd like us to discuss. We can do that for you. We may have some exciting news coming for you very soon. Please remember, check out the page right here at YouTube each and every day, as we'll be putting up new programming regularly. And please subscribe to our YouTube page, like our videos, and join us on the Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram. That would be very helpful. In the studios, John Larsen, back from his tour of the Midwest. And before you went on your vacation, John, things were much different. Since when you were gone, the United States bombed the nuclear facilities in Iran. Israel went in and took out all of their defense positions. There was such a hue and cry about the great war that was going to go on, about the strikes by the supercells that had come in during the Biden administration. But since that time, things have settled down, and even we went through the Independence Day weekend without a hitch. I mean, we went to the Historical Society down there and had some hot dogs and talked about the situation in Sebring and the world. But it looks like this peace is holding much through Daddy Donald Trump, who went in and told both of the sides to cut it out and just be good. And at this point, on this week after Independence Day, things seem to be smooth.
So far, so good. I mean, both sides have kind of settled down and gone back to their neutral corner, so to speak, and play nice with each other for a while. And we'll see. The Iranians, though, I mean, the leadership is still there. The government is still in control, as far as we can see and hear, and so on. So I think that it's going to take more time to see if this actually does hold together and whatnot. But I think certainly Trump deserves all the credit in the world for making the decision, and I'm sure it was a real tough decision, and that's why I think he got so mad at both sides when, after the so-called ceasefire initially, they both went at it again one more time. We're going to knock you, you're going to knock me one more time before this peace agreement, and that got Trump upset, because I think when you look at it, yes, he's not a politician, but in his world right now, he is a politician. And certainly, you had to take a look. He had to take a look. Look, I'm sticking my political neck way out there by doing this bombing, because I told the American people I would never get into a war. And even though I know this isn't going to be a war, they're going to classify it as a war. And so I'm going to be guilty of that, breaking my promise, which I'm going to have to. So that's political capital that I think he gave up to do the bombing. But in the end, if peace is really happening and sustaining, I think he'll be the champion of peace accords.
Well, it's been about a month ago when we had Tom Trento Zoom in at the Tea Party meeting, and he talked about this situation. And I'm trying to get him via the telephone to come back and talk to us about this now. Couple of weeks of a peace in the Middle East,
right?
Because Trump is not a politician, but he is a negotiator,
right? And
he has the ability, I think, to come in, as NATO describes him as daddy, to come in and say, look, one of his great quotes, and I can't quote him exactly, was that he was in one of his impromptu press conferences heading to Air Force 2, and they asked him about this, and he says, look, you've got two countries that have been fighting for centuries, and they've been fighting so long that they don't know what in the world they're doing, or words to that effect. And he was showing his absolute dismay, and it looks like people who had the last word. I mean, when Iran fired the missiles, they told them they were going to fire them, and nothing hit the target. But they said, okay, we've had our retaliation, so now we're fine. Israel decided to go in again, and he called Bibi and said, what part of cut it out don't you understand? But it looks like the Abraham Accords, and it appears that the Middle Eastern countries are just as happy that Iran does not have access to a nuclear weapon, at least not in the foreseeable future, and that they're going to settle down. And so it brings peace to their region. So the Qatars of the world, the Saudi Arabias of the world, the Yemens of the world are now much more satisfied that they're going to have peace in their region. And I think they are going to do as much as anybody to keep a lid on things.
I think so too. I think they were very happy to see this destruction of their nuclear sites in Iran done away with. There's no doubt about it. They've been living under the threat and the cloud of, a nuclear Iran coming after them. It wasn't just the Israelis that were concerned about getting nuked by the Iranians. It was all the rest of the Arab countries in that part of the world getting nuked by the Iranians. So, yeah, I think they're very happy to have that off the table, and now they can go about trying to build their country even stronger and richer, if you will.
Well, Israel is roughly the size of New Jersey.
Yep.
So to take out New Jersey with nukes, how many nukes would it take? One.
Yeah.
Maybe
right.
two, but possibly one.
Right.
And the thing is that the nuclear fallout does not only stay within the confines of the borders of Israel.
No.
It goes throughout the Arab world. And a lot of those guys, they don't want to see that at all. They don't want to. I remember when I was a kid, the Russians had set off a nuclear bomb above ground. Ours were all underground, above ground, and there was a giant cloud of nuclear fallout that was coming over top of the United States. That the atmosphere was, and there was quite a bit of trepidation about what would that do? How would that affect people to have nuclear radiation floating over top of us? I'm sure that the countries in the Middle East have said, we don't have to worry about the secondary effects of that in our country.
Right, because this time the bombing was done totally underground and so on. So all of the blasts that took place were underground, and hopefully and supposedly the nuclear equipment, the uranium and all of that was done away with during the bombing and so on. So that is a huge step forward. Instead of, unlike our last couple of presidents who just shoveled money to Iran, billions and billions of dollars to Iran. No, we knew that there was an issue over there, not only for the Middle East, but also for us, because the rest of the world is unsettled when you've got somebody that's a rogue government like they were, and so on. So I think Trump deserves all the credit in the world, and if this peace holds for the sustainable future, I think that's going to be a very big plus in his presidency. And
the other thing is that we know that they're into symbolic actions. And nothing, I think, would have been better than to have a supercell attack some giant Independence Day celebration. Thousands of people gathered to watch the fireworks in honor of our 249th birthday here, to do something, to send a homicide bomber into the midst of the crowd and take credit for it, or something like that. And nothing like that happened, and we don't even have rumors that they were going to do it and they got thwarted. I mean, It seems like if they exist, and I have no reasonable expectation they don't, but if they exist, they were told to stand down, at least at this point.
Well, if you remember, after the bombings, Trump came out and said, look, when he was questioned by a reporter, they said, well, if the nuclear site wasn't really destroyed or they rebuilt it tomorrow, what would you do? He said, I'd bomb them again.
Yeah.
So I think the deterrent over there right now, the Iranians are sitting there looking, boy, if we do anything that's not right with Trump, what's going to happen? We're going to drop a couple more of those bombs over here. So I think that is the big deterrent. Now, they know we can do it. They know we've done it. They know how disastrous it can be. And so I think they're sitting back saying, okay, we cannot do anything that's going to upset Donald Trump.
No.
Because we're going to get it back double fold, and that's not good for us.
And he means what he says.
Oh, yeah, and the other thing is, he had said at the outset, he said, I will not go after the leadership. I do not want to kill the leadership. I want them in place because they're going to have to deal with the aftermath of this, and if they're not there, then all bets are off.
Yeah, they don't want chaos, and as we heard from Tom Trento, and I'd like to know, because we don't get a lot of real-time information out of that area of the world. But there's the Ayatollahs, which are the religious leaders. It's a theocracy. There's the former royal family, and I guess the prince is now the who would be the king if he came back, who's made overtures to come back. But there's a third party who does not like the theocracy and who wants Iran to be more like America with a constitutional republic. And they have been making noises, and apparently they're the ones that help the Israelis in their efforts, and the Americans as well. I'd like to know if there's any movement in Iran for those kinds of things to happen, because I think they could, the Ayatollahs could step back if they wanted to and say, look, I'm just going to be arguably the Pope of the Muslim world, the Pope of the, and say, well, we'll take care of all religious things, you take care of governmental things. But we have no reports of any of that kind of thing going on.
Well, unfortunately, still today, the army, whatever the military forces in Iran, has all the guns. So, they control the people at this point, and they control them by the gun and whatnot. And the people know that. I'm sure I can remember many, many years ago, before the current, takeover of the country by the zealots and the religious aspect of it, that Iran was a thriving country.
Yes.
I mean, they lived like Westerners.
Very Western.
Yeah, very Westerners. And then once the Ayatollah and his group took over, I mean, of course, they clamped down and shut down everything and then killed off a lot of the dissidents and so on. So I think the fact that they've got that now, the people have to see the opportunity that if they rose up against the government, will they survive? That's the thing. Or the military going to come in and do away with all of us. So I think that whole thing has to be done. But we cannot be involved in that at all, because that is then nation building, and that's what we do not want to do.
Well, Trump has said he's going to stay out, and he basically has, and he does much of it through back channels. Two things about that. Number one is, after it occurred, he made it very plain he did not want to see the gas prices go up, and they didn't. However, right before the Independence holiday, they did. And I mean, we looked at this, and you can hear the Amtrak going by.
It's the almost 12 o'clock
Almost 12
train.
o'clock Amtrak as part of the ambiance we have in the Rich Floor studios
That's
here.
right.
But it did go up, but it came down almost as quickly. And on July 3rd, it shot up to 315. Now here on July 5th, it is down back again to 303.
Right.
And dropping again. So it was the traditional, let's make some money while people are traveling for the Independence Day holidays.
I did see this little station that's just south of here. I did see that this morning. They were $2.99.
Oh, they've gone down to
Just
$2.99.
just a tick under $3.
Yeah,
Yes.
they'll go down. They were $2.79 when everything just dropped,
Right.
jumped up, which, by the way, was the lowest I've seen it in a long.
Yes. And I think, again, going back to what I said earlier, the people need to see the financial aspect of their livelihood improved. Gas prices and grocery prices are the two big kahunas for people, because everybody needs to buy gas, just about, unless you got a Tesla, all right? Or everybody needs to go to the grocery store. So mom needs to see the prices at the grocery store go down, and dad needs to see the price of the gas pump go down. And I think if those two things happen and sustain themselves, not just up one week, down, up and down, up and down, they want to see a consistent lower pricing on all of that stuff. I think that'll be a big step forward for, the improved economy. All of these, these companies and countries came in and said, we're going to give you, $10 billion, $30 billion, we're going to build a plant, whatever. That's great, but building brick and mortar, as you know, takes time.
Yes.
So if you're going to build an XYZ plant because you said to Trump, I'm going to do that, you're going to be 12, 18, 24 months to get that up and running.
Well, GE moving their manufacturing, their appliance manufacturing plant from China to Kentucky, that's not going to happen overnight.
No. But I think once that starts to happen and people get hired, and they get hired into a job that pays, decent money, you're going to see a real change in attitude on the fence dwellers, as I call them, the people that are on the fence with Donald Trump. And I look at it this way with world leaders. They have to be so frustrated because They look at Donald Trump and they say, oh, I could never be like that. But in their heart of hearts, they know, if I was like him, just think how popular I would be.
Donald Trump, the art of the deal,
Yes.
in the game,
Yes.
he is, this is where he lives, is making deals and getting things to work, like shepherding the big, beautiful bill through Congress. And we talked a little bit about this yesterday. It is very, very, very tough, but some of the things that are happening in the big, beautiful bill will be Americans going back to work.
Mm-hmm.
And now, this is nothing new. I remember back in the 1990s, under the Clinton administration, when Congress passed workfare, where to get your checks for you had to put in so much work, even if it was volunteer work. You had to go and start going to work, getting people with the idea of a 9-to-5er, and you're going to start, I think, seeing as the illegals begin to be deported and or self-deport, you're going to find more and more Americans ready to move into those jobs and take those jobs.
Well, you see now that they've gone in and caught a lot of bad guys at job sites, a lot of them. And it's all across the country. It's not just in one spot. It's all across the country. So you're right, as each one of that carpenter, plumber, whatever he was doing at that point in time, whatever they were doing, okay, has to be replaced. And of course now the business people are going to be upset because now instead of paying one person, $8 an hour, I now have to pay somebody $15 an hour because they're an American worker. Well, that's the way it goes. I mean, you have to look at it. The destruction that's being done or the shortfall that's being done by the illegals that are in the country, okay, number one, there are a lot of them, I'm assuming, are paid under the table, not paying any taxes, not paying any Social Security, not paying anything, except they're getting a paycheck for like $8 or $9 an hour, okay, but that doesn't help the rest of the people. That helps them and what they're after, but it doesn't help the rest of the people in that community.
No, and things that people don't understand, and we were talking about this back in the 1990s when Tom Macklin, as the mayor of Avon Park, tried to put the Illegal Immigrant Relief Act into effect based on a similar act in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. But a lot of the money earned by illegals does not stay in the United States. We were in a place just yesterday that had been a restaurant, mm-hmm. and we'd seen that it was open, but we never seen any cars there. Well, there was a sign in the window, and I pulled up to see what it was. And what it was is it's a company that specializes in taking money and sending it overseas, sending it to another country. Mm-hmm. And so what would happen is that that people would make money. They would send the bulk of their money back to their home country and live here on a subsistence level. That's when you see 23 guys in a house made for a family of 5, mm-hmm. okay? And they go in and they find, you go into a regular house and there's bunk beds as far as you can see, because that's all they do. They go there, they sleep, they eat, and they go to work. And they send all their money back overseas. And it is one of the great subsidies, overseas payment programs, which has nothing to do with the government. And so when you start getting Americans will be going to the grocery store, they will be buying cars, they will be paying rent, they will be doing the things that will keep the money here in the United States, and it may not happen tomorrow or even next week, but as you'll begin to see, and they'll be, where does all this money come from? And these countries have fought the idea of battling illegal immigration because they directly receive that money. Tom Macklin and I were in a movie called Illegal. And one of the stories was about this woman who was working on the West Coast. She was working in a hotel as house cleaning. She cleaned the apartments, and she was in the country illegally. She sent her money back to El Salvador, and they showed the house, and it looked, for all the world, like a motel. Mm-hmm. It was a huge house, and all the kids had brand new motorbikes, and they were living like kings. Now, this is a family of at least 4 young men that I can remember, and the husband, and I think some extended family members, living on what she was making, sweeping the floors at a hotel in Los Angeles. And she was crying because she couldn't go back to see her family, because she couldn't sneak back into the country illegally again. So she had to stay where she was, and this was her quote-unquote price for what she was doing. So you figure that's one person. You figure the millions, maybe billions of dollars that we're losing every year through this new workfare program and the big beautiful bill, coupled with the illegals being either A, rounded up and sent away, or B, self-deporting. You're going to see, I think, and this is what Trump wants to see, is an economic boom coming back to the country over the course of 36, 48 months. It'll be a year and a half to 2 years before these numbers, and you'll see the economists going, gosh, where did all this money come from?
Well, the other thing I remember hearing a while back in Mexico, just in Mexico, I think the remittance of what people send back to Mexico that are in the United States, you're talking many, many, many billions of dollars.
Yes.
It's one of the highest revenue streams in the country of Mexico, is what they get back from the people that are living in this country, sending all their money back to Mexico.
And I know that you watch a lot of podcasts and listen to a lot of where do you find most of the stuff on YouTube? Where do you find most of the stuff?
I watch YouTube a lot. Yes.
We watch Right Side Broadcasting Network, RSBN. In fact, my little phone in front of me, I have an app for it. And just yesterday, I got an email from Truth Social. I've been a member of Truth Social. We invested in Truth Social to help Donald Trump. It was, I think, a better investment than giving to his campaign fund. But I got a note saying there's a new thing called Truth Plus. And Truth Plus is a new social media video network with many of the conservative and other kinds of broadcasts that will bring us the kind of information we've been so looking for that you can't find on the mainstream media, even Fox. But like One American News and some of the other ones that are coming across with these kinds of information, it's going to be easier and easier, I think, now to find the kinds of stories that we've been looking for, again, on Truth Plus.
I was listening yesterday when I was driving around, I think it was yesterday, anyhow, to one of the podcasts, and he had, I think, Devin Nunes on. Devin Nunes, I think, is the person that heads up Truth Social for Trump. He runs it. And he was talking about the changes that they're going to be making, which are, going to be really unbelievable with the streaming and that they're going to incorporate into the programs. He said it's going to be off the chart, unbelievable what we're going to be able to do, and so on. So I think you're right, it's coming for Truth Social in a big way. And I think that's going to be good for their business, and hopefully they're able to acquire more, if you will, listeners and viewers.
And I've just seen where Ron DeSantis has signed a new law against what he calls the censorship industrial complex, which is the state agencies will not be allowed to allocate any money to platforms or agencies using what they call fact checkers, and even they're using AI, artificial intelligence, which is artificial, but it's not intelligent. It just scrapes the internet to be a fact checker. But Ron DeSantis says we're not going to support what they call media monitors, where they're able to limit your posts because somehow they think you have false information. And I've had that happen to me where I've double checked my information, and sometimes I see things broadcast or things put up, and I go, can you send me a link to that? Can you show me that that's true, that this is not just wishful thinking, that this is going to be kind of the way it is? Like, I saw this thing that Trump has called for no property taxes anymore in the United States. He wants to go back to the 1913 model and pay for it by tariffs. And I did find some places where he actually was saying this. It's going to require us for a while to go to Right Side Broadcasting, Truth Plus, Victor David Hansen, and some of the podcasts that we watch on YouTube to go and do some of our own research. But I think that'll do a couple of things. Number one, it'll make sure that what we're saying is right, and it'll make us better informed totally. you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think there's no doubt about it. People are looking for the truth in things, and I think that's the big thing that anybody would, and any kind of a broadcasting system would have to offer would be truth. And I think that's one of the things that kind of convinced me years ago to switch to Newsmax and leave Fox. And that's literally what I did. I watched, when Fox, before Newsmax came along, I watched Fox literally. Now that Newsmax has come along and I've seen the people, and the thing that I'm watching the same people because the bulk of their people came from Fox. The major portion of their announcers or spokespersons are from Fox. So it's like old home week, all right? I get to see the people that I always like, and I like their lineup. And I do think that, they are much more conservative as far as I'm concerned than what Fox is today.
Yes, and we mentioned yesterday our good friend Les Lobb, and I'll mention him again because one of the things that he always watched was this group called Judicial Watch. And he liked Judicial Watch because they were not a respecter of political parties. If you're a Republican and you did something wrong, they'd mention that. If you're a Democrat, if you're a libertarian, independent, free soil party, didn't matter. That what they really went after was, are you doing the right thing or are you doing the wrong thing?
Right.
And I would just rather know if people that I like have done things that set foot foul, to find out, because I'm not willing to grant somebody, well, you're a good guy, so you can break the law, but other people can't, or you can do things that are unethical and other people can't. You have to get the same kind of behavior out of anybody, regardless of political beliefs.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's what people are looking for. Looking for honesty and looking for credibility. Okay, I mean, for instance, I was watching, I didn't watch him. It was a snippet that was played on one of the Newsmax programs, and then George Stephanopoulos was on yesterday. And he was interviewing a reporter who was down at the flooding that's taken place in Texas. And she was giving a live update, the water, the people, the casualties, all that. And he said, well, what do you think is causing this? And she made some statement. He said, I've heard that it's the Trump administration cut back on meteorologists. And so really Trump is to blame for this flooding, which is like saying, okay, God had nothing to do with that flooding. Okay, these are a natural disaster. Natural disasters happen all the time.
And one of the problems with this particular flash flood, although if you will look at the National Weather Service, flash floods are the singularly most fatal weather event that occurs, because like this one, it came in the dead of night. Now, and I've talked to my wife about this, I don't understand why they don't realize that this is going to be coming. Why they don't see the rise in lake levels and water levels. We were one time on the Black Warrior River, which is up in Alabama, and we were at this restaurant which was high above the river below, and on the wall they had pictures of where the river had risen up and had come into this restaurant. I will tell you, that's a lot of water. We were 20, 30 feet easily above this. So that was 2 or 3 stories worth of water that had come up, and they had on this tree, this was outside of this little walkway, these little arrows different years where it had come, and there was one that was just about foot level for us. I said, you had that much water? Oh yeah. But they knew it was coming, and they couldn't do anything to shore up the restaurant to make it, they said, well, if it washes away, it washes away. But this came in the dead of night, and some of the things that have happened have been great, like the story about these girls that got washed away, and they found 2 of them on the top of a tree that they were able to grab hold of the top of this tree, and then the waters receded, and they were up there for a day. But some of the girls had gotten away, and the military had gone and picked them up. So there have been some great success stories, as well as I think at this recording, we're over 60 right now.
I heard a little snippet this morning. They said they had rescued a girl who was washed like 8 miles down this river. 8 miles down this river. And she managed to survive all of that, and they rescued her when they finally found her yesterday. I think it was yesterday or this morning. But I mean, that's just, That is almost impossible to imagine that you were washed 8 miles downstream and still survived.
Well, we urge people to keep praying about this, because this is some of the disasters that will add to the federal deficit, that will add to people having to do things, and it's very sad that what we're going to see, the price of gas coming down may not offset the drought or the rain conditions and the heat conditions that we've had up north. There's going to be things that have to be done, but I would urge people to, if we're going to have to spend more, let's decide how we're going to spend it more. And one thing we continue to do, and I think you and I are going to maybe embark in this, is to begin to buy products made in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
we had Steve Slabaugh from Strangely Warmed Coffee on one of the earlier programs. I think that we're going to start to look for products that are made in America from the ground up. You know, if it's a T-shirt company, I don't want them buying Chinese T-shirts and printing on them. I'd like to see them buying cotton that was made in America and processed in America and if it costs more, well, as you pointed out, we're paying for American jobs. We're paying for American entrepreneurship. And so if we can do that, we can continue to help make America great by being smart about what we buy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think they're, going back, and we mentioned this a couple of times over the years, but at one point, Walmart, who is the biggest store company in the world, if you will, had said that they were going to have an American-made section in their stores.
Yes.
But I have yet to see that.
No.
I've yet to see where that ever existed.
And speaking of Walmart, they are raising their prices and blaming it on tariffs, excuse me. Blaming it on tariffs. President Trump wants them to eat those costs because last quarter they pulled in $4.5 billion in profits. In profits.
Right.
So he says you can make it easier on the American consumer and eat those tariff costs, which, as he knows as a businessman, is not a good business model. He usually pass those things
Right.
along.
Yep.
But what he's asking people is for the good of the country. And I was not alive during the war years, okay? There are some people out there who were. I would like to know if there were things that Americans did during the war years, because, face it, we're in a war, in the war that looked at the bigger picture to make sure that, I know that my mother used to talk about the recycling things, that the kids would go out and look for metal, and they'd look for rubber, and they'd look stuff to turn in, so the boys would have tires for their Jeeps and bullets for their guns and all this other stuff.
Yep.
Are there things that Americans should be doing, even if it's a little more expensive and a little more hassle, if you will, to make sure that we win this war in the long run?
I remember my mother saying a story, because she had a lot of brothers who were in the Second World War, all right? And when a couple of them came back, they, of course, had a big celebration, welcoming them back and all that. And she said she could remember her mother gathered up the money to buy fruit cocktail, which was a delicacy, a fruit cocktail. And when her brothers come back, they said, "Oh, fruit cocktail. Yeah, we used to throw the fruit away and use the juice for a mixed drink." So she said, my mother wasn't very happy because she said, we did everything we could to get this delicacy, fruit cocktail, and now you guys tell us you used to throw the fruit away and use the juice for a mixed drink.
Well, I will tell you the one thing that we're getting up on time here a little bit, but the one thing that we as supporters of the president and his administration now really have to do is begin to look ahead to 2026 and 2028, because we saw how quickly things turned around after the results of the 2020 election. And you had men in dresses running the military, and things that you would have told people they would have never, ever believed. And so it's going to be up to us, and during the Independence Day when I did the thing on the Declaration, it's going to be up to us to continue to talk with young people and to instruct young people and to give them the information. We've seen the Jesse Waters where he goes out during Independence Day and says, how do we win our independence? and they don't know. They don't know, what year. They don't even know what year they won into. Well, I just came to watch the fireworks. I came to eat barbecue. And it's going to be up to us. I mean, I grew up watching Johnny Tremaine on Disney when it was about the fictitious patriot Johnny Tremaine that did half-hour episodes once every month or so during the Mickey Mouse Club. I mean, you would watch these things and learn how America won its independence. And I think it's going to be up to us to instruct young people. And I'm going to be looking ahead here to be doing some bonus podcasts on the founders, on things that happened between now and December when we'll celebrate Constitution Day, and to talk about some of these things, because it's going to be up to us to look for America First candidates, and they may not be what you would call the most conservative people. Donald Trump's not a conservative, but he loves this country, and he wants to see this country prosper, and he wants to see us making money. He wants to have us be, and to be a business, there's a cost to doing business. So is he the most conservative guy out there? Well, probably not.
No.
But we need to look for people who will give him help, and whoever his successor is in 2028, we need to look to make sure that they get elected and they get that kind of help.
Right, absolutely. And I think it's going to be important because, unfortunately, the House of Representatives, which now the Republicans just lost another member because there was a, can't remember his name, but a congressman that stayed around for the vote on the budget, but he's going to start his own business, and he retired. The day after the budget was signed, he retired because he said, no, I'm starting my own business, and he said, this is the right time for me. So I assume, and I'm hoping that the state that he came from has a Republican governor that can put somebody in there to fill the rest of his term.
Yeah, it's a red district, and different states have different rules.
Right.
But it basically boils down to how long have you served. If you've served more than half of your term, the governor can have a replacement. If you have not served half your term, it goes to a special election. And by the way, not this week, but next week, Karen Healy, Supervisor of Elections, will be at the Highlands Tea Party, and I have many questions to her about how Highlands comports their elections, how the state of Florida comports their elections. We just saw Mike Lindell win a huge victory about the machines, and now he's all about going back to paper ballots. I don't know the answer to this question. I've seen and heard about irregularities with paper ballots as well. The argument is, well, at least you have a trail. But at any rate, we need to talk about that, because that, as much as anything, will determine what happens in 2026 and 2028. So.
Well, everything is going to be used by the Democrats, of course, and there's nothing in this world that is good because Donald Trump has his fingerprints all over it. So, I mean, this is what they've already started. I mean, they really have not, what can they point to that has bettered this country, that they're after, that they're saying, that they're doing? Nothing that I can see. So, this is going to be their tactic. They're going to throw bombs at everything, and it's up to the American people to separate the truth from the fiction and then make a decision on how they're going to vote.
Yeah, so, and we'll talk about more later. And John, as always, we appreciate you so much. And you've been listening to the latest edition of the Barry Foster Show at the Ridge Floor Studios, located in the city of Charm, beautiful downtown Avon Park. If you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions for our program, you can drop us a line at thebarryfostershow@gmail.com. And check out our YouTube page daily. We'll be putting on new programming regularly, and subscribe to our YouTube page. And join our pages at The Barry Foster Show on Facebook and Instagram as we continue to search for truth, justice, and the American way. This is John Larsen and Barry Foster, and we'll see you next time.